Hey, barbecue family. Welcome to Flavor Talk with the Barbecue Pro Shop Factory team. I'm co host Brian Neal, aka Mr. Freak of Smoke Freaks Barbecue.
Hey everybody, I'm Ann Neal, Ms. Freak, and together we are the tongues and testers for the flavor guide at Barbecue Pro Shop, the world's first online seasonings decoder. And joining us is our partner in flavor going all the way back to 2019, Jeff Belmonte, owner of Barbecue Pro Shop. Hey Jeff, what's up?
Not much. Glad to be here tonight. How you doing, everyone?
Awesome. We are excited for tonight's flavor talk where
Hey,
we welcome
everybody.
Alan Smith.
We got an audio issue.
Oh, we got an audio issue. Well, I was going to welcome Alan Smith and Eric Hodson at
Sorry,
Boars Night
everyone.
Out.
We got a big echo audio issue that I'm going to try and fix as we're starting to stack up on top of each other.
Okay, it sounds okay to me.
Sounds good on my end.
Sounds good here. That's right.
All right.
Oh, all right.
Maybe,
All right.
maybe we're okay.
Well, hopefully I will not have to jump off and rejoin, but I may have to. Something's going seriously wrong.
All right. Well, Brandon says, sounds good to me. Hey, Brandon, what's up? Thanks for joining the Flavor Talk. So why don't I kick this off, Brian?
All right. So we are here tonight with Alan Smith.
We done broke the mics and everything.
Yeah, we're breaking the internet, you guys.
Yeah, I'm jumping off and gonna restart the computer.
Why don't you do
Sorry,
that?
guys.
I'm gonna kick this thing off. See you, Mr. Freak. That's a little too freaky for me. All right, so Alan and Eric are the legends behind Boars Night Out Championship Barbecue, known for not only the amazing line of flavors, but some serious domination in food sport. So, Alan and Eric, congrats seriously on all of your success, and welcome to Flavor Talk.
Thank y'all for having us.
You are very welcome. We're happy to have you here. Also, a warm welcome to everyone joining tonight or later on, thanks to the magic of replays. Be sure to drop us some comments. I see some comments already coming on here, like Dan, hey, thanks for joining us. And of course, post up any questions you might have for Alan and Eric. And boy, Mr. Freak, I don't know what happened to him, but we are going to jump right in. And tonight we have a couple of topics. We're going to talk about competition barbecue. We're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of competition barbecue. And we're going to talk about flavor because it's Flavor Talk, obviously. But before we get into that, let's do a quick intro and then we'll get into the rest of our discussion. So for those that might be unfamiliar with Boars Night Out, tell us how you guys got started and tell us the origin of the name, Boars Night Out.
This is always a good story. Boars Night Out started with 5 divorced guys. We were hanging out at Buffalo Wild Wings and had this great idea. We're going to start a barbecue team. We had all had some part of a background in barbecue with another team or family members or something to that matter. And we just thought it'd be the right thing to do. You know, we like to get together, have a good time, cook, and drink some beer. So that's what we did. We met once a week for about 3 months to get this thing planned and started. And we came up, we all had different names, different ideas. And we started with, you know, just writing them down and bringing them to the table. And we turn around and do a process of elimination, basically. And got to the end, and you know, here we have Boars Night Out was the one that stuck and kept making it to the next day. So that's where that came about. I'll let Eric do a little analogy on the how him and I met. And we've been cooking about a year. Then Eric and I met each other. So.
Yeah, I was one of those divorced guys as well. And what do a lot of divorced guys do in their 20s when they want to kill time is go to the bar and hang out. So we was at a bar one night hanging out, and when Alan and I first met, we didn't see eye to eye. We were not best friends at that point, and we were about to get into a big old fight in a bar, and when cooler heads prevailed, we were drinking beer together at the end of the night, and we've kind of been inseparable since. So now business partners, best friends, and we've had one hell of a run together since 2006.
I feel like there's a lot more to that story. I really want to go.
You don't have enough time tonight.
I want to go all in on that.
We'll just say we have corporate sponsors, and
It could be another show.
that could be another show.
Boars Night Out, double X rated.
Behind the scenes.
Exactly. So for the both of you, where did your respective barbecue stories begin, even before you guys, got connected? Was that kind of what you were just
Yeah, mine was delivered from my mom and dad, my grandparents. My mom and dad cooked Memphis in May back in the early '80s when it was actually under a tent, and that's hard to imagine. But that's where my passion for barbecue became when I was 5 or 6 years old, when I got to stay up and hang out and cook the late night shift with all the grown kids or the adults, and got to play with the hogs and things like that. So that was my partay, and where I got my passion for barbecue was from my parents and grandparents and friends of that nature.
That's so
Yeah.
cool that you got to learn directly from them. My dad tried to teach me, but all he was good at was burning chickens. So
I think mine came from, I was raised in Memphis, so I was raised around a lot of people that had barbecue teams with their parents. I was young, and I remember going to Memphis in May back when it wasn't a humongous festival. My first time was as a kid. Friends' parents' companies had teams. I think my dad's company that he was with at the time might even had teams, but we were going down early, and back then, Memphis barbecue was the world famous barbecue, and growing up around it and growing up around competition barbecue, even though we weren't doing it as a kid, my parents weren't into it. It was something that was always super cool. It's always cool to cook big pieces of meat. I had neighbors that did it, so I always looked up to them. And when I hooked up with Alan and they were talking about cooking barbecue, hell, I was in. I was hooked already.
I love these stories about how people get started in barbecue, and for a lot of people, it doesn't begin with kind of their childhood experience or young adult experience. It's something that happens, later in life, and I have a lot of respect and that's really cool, you guys. My story is so different, but I really love that early connection. Tell me a little bit about your very first competition cook when you guys got together. Do you remember how that went?
Oh yeah, I remember well how it went.
We know how it finished too.
That's it.
Yeah.
We were to a point to it was like how many kegs of beer can you drink in a weekend? And that was our goal. We would cook. At the time, we thought we were a shoulder team or a rib team or something of that nature. So we entered those categories. Nonetheless, did we usually turn anything worth eating in? So,
or turn it in, period.
Or turn it in, period. That's right. And when you have to wake up your friends and stuff that stayed overnight because you got judges that are going to be here in like 5 minutes, and everybody's hung out in the chairs from the night before, and the place is a wreck and all that. But
how many kegs can you drink over a Memphis in May?
Well, it was South Haven Spring Fest. Was it 23, Eric?
We did 29 kegs, 100 cases of cans, and about 40 gallons of hard liquor in 2 nights at South Haven Spring Fest.
Okay, so there was more than just you two.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
we had about 50 or 60 members that came and drank
Well,
beer.
that's still an insane amount of beer.
We had a line 50 yards long trying to get in our spots. We were the grand champions of the parties, not of the cook, I can tell you.
I remember the very first time I came across you was probably at Murfreesboro or maybe Memphis, and we were set up pretty close to you. And I was like, how do we get to be those guys, John? We were cooking with John Bobinet back then. I'm like, they've got all the hot girls over there, and look at us. We got each other.
Whoa.
Strategy.
What about Miss Freak?
Miss Freak didn't come the first year I went. It was
Good.
You got off the hook on that
Good
one.
save, Mr. Freak.
That's back in the days when we were sponsored by Hooters Corporate and Anheuser-Busch and liquor stores, and so it was a good time back in the day for sure.
This is a perfect segue. So tell me about that turning point from Hooters sponsorship and the 20 how many kegs to when you realized Boars Night Out was more than maybe a party team.
Well, when I joined the team in 2006, and it was actually April. That was the month of South Haven Spring Fest. That weekend after that party, we realized we spent well over $10,000 partying versus trying to recoup some of that money winning. I got with Alan shortly after that and said, man, we need to do something different. We got to do something different or we're all going to go broke. And we've begged and pleaded from everybody to sponsor us, give them, get the change out of the couch cushions so we can go cook next weekend. That's how bad it was. But I told him, I said, if we want to run with the big dogs, we need to cook whole hogs. That's what you do in Memphis style barbecue. They're cooking whole big cuts of meat. All the big boys, all the big dogs were cooking whole hogs. And I said, we got to save money and we got to buy a whole hog cooker. And we ended up, before we bought a whole hog cooker, we ended up buying a big old hickory rotisserie that we could cook 80 Boston butts on it at a time. And we did fundraisers. We sold Boston butts, ribs, turkeys, hams at Thanksgiving, whatever we could do to raise money so we could, move forward and buy these hog cookers. And we bit the bullet and we finally had a little bit of money, bought that hog cooker. And the first time we took it out and did a rundown on it at a cook, we ended up second place whole hog. And that was in Jackson, Mississippi. And that's what lit the fire under Alan and myself and a few others that we really wanted to become successful at this. We've seen all these people make a bunch of money. They have these awesome cookers. They got these awesome trailers. They've got, their products in stores. And we had just got bit by that bug that Saturday in Jackson, Mississippi, when we ended up second place whole hog. So that's definitely when it did it for me.
What was that first hog cooker you brought down there?
It was a backwoods Pro Comp hog that we pulled out of a barn and pulled probably 2 garbage bags full of pine needles and leaves out of it. And we learned that it ended up being serial number 1.
Oh, wow.
Backwoods Pro Comp hog smoker.
Is that a water cooker or a indirect water cooker with the pan in between, the fire below, reverse flow?
Yep.
Yeah, I've used their similar smokers. I don't know if it was that early, but man, that's a heck of a hog cooking machine. And honestly, I've only cooked hogs 3 different ways with my buddies, and that's been the ones that's turned out the best and what we always did at Memphis for the most part.
Yep.
They're the Cadillacs when it comes to
hog cooking. It's a heck of a hog cooker for sure.
Yeah. So turning to the business side of barbecue, I know you guys have had products at Barbecue Pro Shop for a long time. In fact, I think that's where Brian and I first got introduced to your flavors. So do you guys remember getting connected to Jeff and you guys getting connected for the first time? How long ago was that? And how did that all come to be?
Well, Eric and I were just talking about this the other day after y'all had the little break-in just to see, how the show was going to go and things. And we got to thinking, but I talked with Jeff a couple of times, and then we had a mutual friend together, which was another Jeff. And anyway, I think it's what 2000. What we said 2017.
It had to be 17 because I believe
Yeah.
2018 is when Jeff actually came and cooked with us at
and
Memphis,
then-
wasn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, it was 2019 when I cooked with you, but yeah, I started.
Oh,
Jeff,
okay.
Yeah, Jess Silvers from Smoke and Deal came to me. He said, you don't carry this Boars Night Out stuff. I got to hook you up with these guys. And that's how the whole thing started.
Yeah, that's how it started. And,
That's Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Obviously you carry a ton of products and we've done flavor guides. We're up to over 425 of them. But even with that, that's only a fraction of all the rubs and sauces on the market today. Even Amazon, doesn't carry everything. So what makes Boars Night Out a good fit for Barbecue Pro Shop?
It's a phenomenal seller. The Boars Night Out White Lightning, that one really took off. Double garlic butter went even crazier. They still go neck and neck around sales. Sell a lot of it on Amazon. That was one of the big reasons that we got connected at the time. We were selling it on Amazon. We were one of the first people to get it out there to everybody. And it really, to me, that really speaks to the popularity of it. And also, is it something that everybody likes? And that's something that I could give to just about anyone, barbecue or not, and they absolutely love it. Whether they want to do garlic bread with it, steaks, ribs, whatever it might be. It's just one of those. It's a really sort of straightforward, simple to use. Everybody gets it kind of rub. There's not a lot of complications in it, and it's just really good stuff. The sale speaks for itself. It
And
sounds like
the
crazy.
name that everybody gave us crap about in the beginning said it was a tongue twister, ended up being is what helps sells that product. Anybody that gets anything double garlic, they're gonna buy it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
and that's how it's been. Yeah.
Shall we shift gears and get into
Sure.
the evolution of competition barbecue and all the stuff you guys have seen and accomplished there? So I know for sure you guys have been a big part of it since way before we did. What'd you say? 2006 was when you first jumped in. Back then,
that's when we had our own team. Our Boars Night Out started in 2005. I think we cooked like 3 contests or something. But Eric and I met in 2006, and then that's when we started coming up with plans to do different, to be successful, to not to just go out and throw money away on a weekend and work your tails off doing it. You can go throw your money away and have a party, and okay, you go work all week to go cook and then throw all your money away. You got to try to recoup some of that somewhere. And we came up with a plan, just like he said. We talked about wanting to cook whole hog, and that was a goal. And they always say, no matter what you do, you reach a goal, or you set a goal, but you don't set a goal that you can't reach. You set a goal that's actually reachable. That way you don't get frustrated, you don't get disappointed, and then you set another goal. And it's a stair step deal for sure, because it starting out, it definitely was not easy. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears all the way around. It's something I never thought would be anywhere close to where it is to this day.
Yeah.
And,
So
still, bless you, and still very, humble about the whole deal of how we've came and how we've progressed over the years.
So you guys have been into it a full decade longer than before Ann and I even went to our first barbecue competition. Anything we knew about it before that was based on Pitmasters on TV.
Sure.
It kind of approximates some of the things that go on in like a NBN style competition. And I thought that was just so cool. But more than anything, it was just, the passion and the craft and the camaraderie that was obviously going on in that scene that attracted me. But so for this segment, I want to dig into some of how the entire scene has changed. Obviously, you guys have gone light years from a competition taking 20 kegs and 100 cases to a comp to what you do now. And, going from trying to figure it out to really dominating the scene a lot of times. But what's the biggest change you've seen just within competition barbecue in that, gosh, we're going on 20 years now.
I think the biggest one is secrets. There's not many secrets left anymore. Back when we started, everybody was putting up walls on their tents. They were prepping behind walls. They were prepping inside trailers. They did not want anyone knowing what they were doing, what products they were using. Everybody says they're using their own products. They would never talk about someone else's. It just wasn't happening. And there wasn't all them classes that there are now. So the learning curve back in the day was a lot harder than it is now. People are way more bold now too. They'll just flat out call you and ask you, what do you do? How do you do it? What did you use? We tell them now because we want to sell them our products. But back in the day, everything was so proprietary and so secretive. You didn't give out anything. And now you can just look it up online. But there's people like Mark Lambert and us and a lot of other people. We'll just tell you. We'll just tell you how to do it and tell you how we do it. And it might work for you. It might not. But that's the number one thing that I've seen from 2006 to present day is how everybody goes about getting their information and learning. The learning curve has shortened so much. It's so much easier now for someone to get in competition cooking and be successful at it. You got more products to choose from that are proven. You can go to any barbecue store, especially Jeff's. You can buy products right off the shelf, and you can be a world champion cook, and you don't have to develop anything.
Yep, that is 100% for sure. And by the time Ann and I got into it, is 2014. And even then, just in those 11 years since then, for you kids listening, the internet did exist in 2014 and it did exist in 2006. However, when these guys started, there was no Facebook at that point. The only place you could get anything about barbecue online was like Barbecue Brethren was a great message board for that kind of stuff. But yeah, nobody was really telling the secrets. And just between 2014 and 2018, it exploded. Now everyone's doing classes, making videos, and all that. It's been wild.
If it wasn't for Mark Lambert and Malcolm, there wouldn't be all these classes. They're the ones who started Barbecue Live and
trendsetters.
And yeah, they were trendsetters. And now everybody's doing it, which is good. It gives you, different. There's so many different ways of cooking barbecue. Nobody's wrong at it. There's so much hot, fast, low and slow. There's tons of different ways, but they opened up the door for everyone to become successful a lot easier.
Yeah, it's really wild just how it's gone from almost ancestral knowledge to now it's something you can go out and learn about. You can even ask ChatGPT; it'll tell you how to make 3-2-1 ribs.
Well, they spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn all this stuff, and then you can go learn it for a few $100.
Yeah.
That took them decades to learn.
Well, on the judging side of things, do you think that the standards for things like flavor or tenderness or anything else have changed over time in the 20 years you've been doing this?
Definitely changed.
Yeah, how so?
I can say, our barbecue rub, it generated from a rub my parents used, which was, chili powder, paprika, black pepper, garlic, things of that nature. And as we noticed, things were changing. Even back then, we're going sweeter. So we were starting to find flavors to start looking for something different. And we changed. We played with different sugars and things of that nature to turn around and just have something different. And between all the wood you can put on a fire, to black, crispy, charred barbecue, to what you have now is a soft, subtle, bold glazed piece of meat, whichever way you want to cook it, or whichever piece you want to cook. And, I think, when you sit back and look, flavors, just like anybody's palate, it changes like every 7 years. So your palate's changed, the judge's palate's changed. So, everything has to revolve and go back to where it came from eventually. But there's so many different ways to get there, and I believe flavor to me is probably the biggest thing I've seen change in barbecue and cooking technique.
Things
Yeah.
have gotten a lot sweeter, a lot
Absolutely.
sweeter. There, back when we were cooking, growing up in Memphis, tomato-based sauces and or dry ribs was what everybody wanted at restaurants. That's what we all ate. Alan will tell you his favorite ribs are dry rib. My favorite ribs are dry rib. It's what I grew up eating.
Everyone
with
went to the
sauce on the side.
rendezvous when they visited Memphis, right?
Well,
That's it.
that, and we had a ton of
That's what we
restaurants
did.
around, that were Memphis style barbecues. That's what we ate. And back when it was savory, it had a little heat. It didn't have much sweetness. And then like Alan said, we started noticing that our seasonings were not up to par with all the flavors that were changing in barbecue. Even though we were still green behind the ears at this competition barbecue, you can look at your flavor scores and you can shig and you can go peek around the corner and you can let Alan get drunk with one of these other pitmasters and steal a few secrets. But it's evolved so much. And, now I look at a lot of these seasonings and sauces, and there's apple cherry habaneros, and there's pineapple glazes, and there's peach wraps, and there's all this stuff that back in the day we never would have imagined that we'd even have this option of buying over the counter, much less even thought about using it in our barbecue. It's like he said, the evolution of barbecue has come a long way, and we've cooked so many different sanctioning bodies over the years that have a little bit different criterias. We've made great friends with a lot of world champion cooks, and you learn a little bit here and there, and you can see the flavors in different regions, from Texas to the Carolinas to, we hang out a lot up in Kansas City area now, and obviously being around Memphis, they're all so different. And now a lot of people are doing almost like the fusion style barbecue, to where they're blending all these different flavors and coming up with some killer products. And that shows a lot, I think, with like Rib Cook-Off Association. They don't have certified judges. It can be any Joe Blow off the street that, that can eat several portions of barbecue, but it kind of shows the people that are consistent. They have great products. They have good flavors. And I think most of them are obviously to the sweeter side. So,
Hey, so maybe that's where I should take my sriracha maple ribs out to the RCOA, give it a shot, see what
I think there's something,
you never know.
You talked about flavor and the everything's very sweet. And even in the 10 years or so that Brian and I have been in this, in that 10-year time frame, I definitely feel like there has been this. I agree with everything you've said about the flavor. In my words, it's kind of like this escalation. Like, just when you think flavor can't be bigger and more punched into one bite, there's new ways of layering flavor or adding flavor, and the flavors are different, and the flavors are bolder and more intense. And I remember we were way back when we were struggling with pork, and we had a buddy taste our pork after turning, like, what are we doing wrong? And he was like, your pork's nice.
it tastes like pork.
It tastes like pork. And I never forgot that. Like, oh, okay. It's all the crap that we do, all the stuff you do before and during, but especially after the cook. Okay. So, but then, through technology and Facebook and the way people share things, and you could hang out with somebody who's more intoxicated than you are and shig a little bit, then you do learn some pork secrets that, sweeter.
100%.
And it's crazy. It's totally.
It's just a big one bite challenge.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
And
you
then
got to make that one bite count.
I remember the year where nobody we knew anything about putting maple syrup in pork products, and then the next year everybody was doing it up by us, like literally everybody, just like that. And now they probably moved on to something else. But Ann mentioned technology. Let's move on to that. Technology and equipment for barbecue have come an awful long way in 20 years. So I'm wondering, what gear or innovations do you think have had the biggest impact on competition cooking over those years?
You
Well,
want to take it or you want me to take it?
I'll do part of it. I got, when Eric and I, when we were starting to discuss what to do, how to do, we were really reaching and grasping and trying things. And like you said, I'd walk around and I'd talk to people and find, you know, I don't mind asking anybody a question. But you back at the time you had all these gurus and things of that were fan powered, thermometers basically on your cooker. So turn your cooker into a powered type cooker that red temperature, red fan speeds, and airflows and things of that nature. So that was something that hey, we were always in the natural side of things, so we turned and played with that stuff. And I think we learned a lot of that, but we learned that going back to the basic was a better fit for us. So all the electronics that people use today, you know, don't so much work in our cooking aspect that we do, or our method. One thing that we do a lot of is you temp meat, and that's probably the most electronic stuff that we use. It'd be a dot or a thermopin or something of that nature to speak of, because well, I guess we've just learned.
Oh,
Oh, lost him there for a minute.
we were about to learn something. We
Oh,
learned that
I can probably
learned
finish
we
it off
lost.
till he gets back. We we started off with those gurus and the assisted fans and all that to stoke fires, and we learned this is before they were battery powered. You had to plug them in. Well, a lot of these contests had
Oh, that's right.
kind of crappy power grids, so we would lose power. Our fires weren't keeping temp, so we unplugged them all one day and we got rid of all of them. We gave them away and said we're going to run pits that does not take any type of electricity. We do run old hickories, but you can unplug them. You don't have to have the convection to run those pits. But we got out of the technology and cookers game, and when we stopped using power assistance or any type of fan, we learned our cookers instead of just plugging in, our gurus or our fans to run them for us. So when we learned to run every type of pit you could imagine. We've cooked on them. We own a ton of them, from stick burners to old hickories to backwoods, which is now Blue Bayou. You name it, we've probably owned it or have it. And you don't need all that technology. Barbecue started out with wood and some fire and some meat, and that's all you've got to have, and something for wind management. And when we got rid of all the gurus, we got rid of all that mess. We learned our cookers better. We cooked better. We know a lot of people that run barrels with gurus in them. You don't really need them. You don't need that guru. We can set ours at whatever temperature you choose. We'll set it to that temperature, and it'll run that way for however many hours you want it to run. Get rid of all those variables.
Yep, I definitely like things that don't have to be plugged in. In fact, one of the former greats in KCBS, Travis Clark, he told me I don't even run a fridge in my trailer because fridges break. And he's the guy who could fix the damn fridge if it broke. But he's like, I'm using coolers because ice don't break.
That's right.
That's it.
So what about techniques then? Have the techniques in competition barbecue changed a lot since you were first starting?
100%. Back in the
let's
day,
dig
who
into
would have
that.
ever thought of hot and fast? Who would have thought about cooking briskets in 4 and 5 hours, or powering down on just money muscles or collars. We grew up cooking whole shoulders. That was the criteria. You had to cook a whole shoulder with a collar on it, with the shank on it.
Yeah.
You're 20, between 18 and 22 pounds a piece. Now you can get a 1 pound money muscle and cook it, and you can cook it in 3 hours. So, things have changed a lot.
Yeah, I'll say. I mean, when did you cook your first Wagyu brisket?
Oh
I'm
my
guessing
gosh.
it was in 2006.
After it broke our heart to pay for it. It's been a few years, but the first time we spent a few $100s on a brisket, then we started reevaluating what we were doing again.
In general.
Yeah, have you ever gone back to just cooking primes for competition or something like that? Or have you gotten on the escalation train with the rest of us who spend way too much money for 6 dudes to take one bite?
I can tell you, we've got on the Wagyu train, but we'll buy a prime brisket for like our second one or something. Every time we've gotten a 180 brisket, it was off that prime instead of that Wagyu. So I think it's just if it's cooked right,
All
no
right.
matter what it is, if you learn that cut, you can cook it.
There's a shiggable secret. And, I remember when Wagyus were just coming into vogue. I think it was Meathead at Amazing Ribs did some kind of testing where they did a bunch of blind tests with people eating choice prime and Wagyu. And like the lower cuts won out every time with just normal folks. It's pretty wild how the trends change. But I will say it's a whole lot easier to cook a Wagyu good than it is a choice good.
Well, you've got a little bit of playroom with all the marbling and all the fat.
Yep. And I think it takes less skill after your first one. The first one's going to burn you no matter what if you've never cooked one, because you're going to undercook it. But once you figure that out, it's pretty easy to cook a good Wagyu.
Heck, nowadays we can buy the Snake River flats right off the Benny Keith truck, and they're just as good as any brisket that you're going to get anywhere else.
The what? Benny Keith truck? What's that?
It's just like U.S. Foods, or it's just a food purveyor.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Well, what do you miss about the old days? Is there any element of the competition scene that has faded away? And audience, I'd love for you to weigh in on this too. I see some old timers out here. What do you miss now versus then?
I miss the on-site judging. That was something that really drew me to the Memphis style barbecue, and really was a big part of my passion for it. The whole cuts of meat, the big cuts of meat, that was definitely, something that I enjoyed. But you still cook a whole hog. But as Eric was saying a minute ago, the platform has changed, and you can go cook a collar and turn it in for an NBN box. So, I feel that the the on-site judging, that you still get to do it to a point if you make finals, but it used to be 3 on-site judges for each category and 4 for each category finals, and you had 21 judges. That was a good day. So and that was what we wanted to do, and that's what we went to a contest for, is to see those judges. And not only did we get to see those judges and have them for a judge or a presentation, but we became friends with these judges, and we would see them 15, 20 times a year, at several contests throughout. And so, that would be the only conversation you really have with them, is it during that time. And when that cut out, a lot of the judges quit coming, and it's change, and it's time. And I guess to a point that when it did it wasn't my suggestion. They didn't call me and ask me what I thought about it. So they did, but it didn't matter. But
yeah, what was that about? Was that about the money and the cost of having to cook 2 of everything, or why'd they phase that out?
who cooked 2 of everything?
I'll be the bad guy here. People started getting soft, and you talk to any of the old school barbecue people, if they could go back to NBN the way it was when we were cooking 16 slabs of baby backs, we were cooking 8 22-pound shoulders and 150-pound pig 30 plus time weekends a year. and we would do it for years in a row. That's when people started complaining about money, and they just got soft, and I can't afford to buy that many shoulders or that many ribs. Well, the guys racing the sprint cars aren't complaining they had to buy an extra right rear that weekend. It's part of the sport. You got into it knowing what they were getting into, and the complaining got to the reps and it got to the higher ups at NBN, and they changed the rules basically without taking up a vote with the people that make up the NBN, and that's the cooks. So it kind of went on behind the scenes, behind everyone's back, and they didn't really ask the people that made NBN who NBN is. And that's the Myron Mixons, and that's the John Wheelers, and the Mark Lamberts, and the Boars Night Outs, and the Malcolms, and the people that made NBN who it is. And they didn't ask anybody their opinion. So they basically took the judges' hobby and half of our hobby away. The most fun part about barbecue to me was presenting the meat that we spent 18 plus hours cooking, a week getting ready for that competition. We love to present and tell our story, how we got this product from A to B. And that was one of the most fun parts of barbecue to us was, talking to those judges, like Alan said. And I think they kind of ruined a little bit of the Memphis style, barbecue scene. They kind of killed it a little bit, I think. Memphis and May is a different sanctioning body, so they kept it the way it's supposed to be. On-site prelims, on-site finals, run what you brung. If you're worried about your budget, work harder, get a sponsor, sell Boston butts and ribs like we did, and make it happen. It doesn't have to be given to you. Work hard for it, and that's what we did. And I think that's what made us successful, because we started from the bottom and we made our way to the top the right way, instead of, crying about cost and everything else. We just made it happen because we had the passion for it.
I love your perspective on this, Eric, because I remember my first time being involved with Memphis and May. I'd never done MBN at all. I'd just been a KCBS guy at that point, and went down there with a buddy of mine and competed on his hog team. And when that week was over, he said, "Well, what'd you think of Memphis in May?" And I can't say all of it on the podcast, but I said, "Man, I think KCBS is for a bunch of blanks." I just could not believe the effort and all that went into doing what we did. But man, I was addicted to it. And as I get older, it gets harder and harder. And I don't know if I'll be a hog cooker again. But man, I love the format and all that goes into it. And it really is, if you're out there cooking steaks or cooking ribs at a competition, that's awesome. The sport needs you, but the big leagues is getting up there to Memphis and May, where you've got to do it all, and it'll change your life. So speaking of, go ahead.
I think that's why we have a different passion for barbecue than a lot of the people. And I'm not knocking anybody. They've got their own passion, their own reason for doing it. But we grew up around the hard cooking, the old school cooking. That's why when we talk to judges, we cook old school barbecue with new school techniques, what we've learned over the years, but we still cook old school barbecue. And if we could go back, it brings back memories just talking about it. And we would work our butts off, all these other sanctioning bodies, KCBS, all the ones down through Texas. There's a lot more people that are successful at those sanctioning bodies than we are, but it's a lot easier than doing MBN, and you're cooking a whole hog, whole shoulders and ribs, and doing on-site prelims and on-site finals. It's just a whole different ball game. And when that's what you learned on, that's what you have that passion for. And I wish they never would have changed it. I think Memphis barbecue would still be the top dog. And that's why we love it, because when we grew up, everybody always said, if you want to run with the big dogs, And you want to be a big dog, you got to go cook whole hog at Memphis in May.
Yep.
And that's what lit the fire under us.
Or go to an MBM and cook all three. Man,
There you go.
that is
Right.
that is endurance right there. So Jeff, you've had the honor of actually joining the Boars Night Out team down at Memphis in May a few years
Oh
back.
yeah.
What was that like? Were they
Well,
still
and, you know, the
making
thing that
Polish eggs?
the thing that was amazing is I was, you know, I'm not a competitive barbecue guy, but I absolutely am enamored by the food sport in general, just how intense. And my first experience in seeing NBN presenters when I watched Melissa Cookson and Pat Burke down in Murfreesboro, my first time down there when I was judging, and I had never seen anything like that. So back in Memphis in May, when I'm in the Boars Night Out booth, and like the entire mood changed, like the night that they put the hog in and everything got going. But the next day, as the judges are coming, that's it, to see Alan and Eric completely change into full on NBN mode, and both of them presenting and guiding the judges in, and Eric just started talking, and I was absolutely blown away by, you know, the story and the whole thing. And you could tell, and, you know, same thing with listening to Pat Burke. It was like, that was something that was culled over years and years and years. And it was so smooth and, you know, Southern gentleman, and, you know, welcoming in the judges and the whole presentation. And like, you could feel the hospitality and the whole thing. And it was, to me, that was the shift that I saw, because the first time I went to Memphis in May was, you know, goodness, it had to be back like in 2005, maybe even earlier than that, 1990. And all it was a massive party. But to be able to hang out and see what was actually going on in those tents the day of the competition, you know, it was absolutely unbelievable. And most importantly is although they won an award, I think it was like 7th in whole hog, you know, that the thing they were most excited about was the backyard team that they had sponsored, and they gave them the rib recipe, and those guys won. And we went out partying with those guys that night, and they were more excited about those guys winning than they were about anything. So that was probably the biggest surprise, and tells me that, you know, that's how that, I mean, that to me was what barbecue is all about. It's helping and seeing others win, even when, you know, you don't win the whole big thing. But that was an amazing night, and just partying it up with those guys and getting to watch everybody. That was a blast.
Who was that team you were helping out?
You might have heard of him before. Robert Perkins with Poncho and Lefty.
Oh, that guy. I have.
Yeah,
heard of
that guy.
Get out.
Yeah, they were a different team at that time before they bought P&L.
Yeah.
But yeah, we decided to spawn. They wanted to cook Memphis in May, and they wanted to go backyard before they went up to the big leagues. And Alan and I, you know, we talked about sponsoring them and said, look, we're going to give you a short rib class. And they took what we taught them and what they already knew, and they went and swept the floor.
Yeah.
Got that world champion. So.
Well,
they absolutely did. And an awesome.
Let's move on and dig into the Boars Night Out lineup, because, you know, for those of you listening, I know we've got some friends and family and other folks on who aren't hardcore barbecue guys, but the Boars Night Out folks make some amazing products, including at least one that I think changed the whole direction of barbecue seasonings, in my opinion. But let's talk about the flavors, guys. Ann and I counted up 7 different rubs you got on the market right now, and sauce as well. Is that right? 7 of them right now?
7 rubs. That's correct.
Yeah. So what was the first one to market, and how did it come to be?
Hello. The first one that we had was our original barbecue rub, and you know, it was good. It still is good, but everybody has a red barbecue rub, and we would get to the contest, we'd make it fresh, or what we would call fresh. You know, we'd go to Sam's and we'd buy our ingredients and we'd mix it, you know, the night before or whatever, and you know, it never was consistent. And we talked to a couple of people, and they said, you know, you could go do this, and then you could have it. You can order it. It's going to be pretty consistent from what you do every time. And so that's what got us into the manufacturing of it. And at that time, we could order 50 pounds and have it for a contest, and then turn around and just order 50 more pounds or whatever. And then it got to a point to where we were at a contest and somebody want to buy a bottle of rub or something. So at that present time, we never had any anticipation of being a big player or being a player at all in the barbecue world as far as supplying seasoning and spices. So that just kind of turmoiled and turned into having the white lightning line. The white lightning line came out, which it was different. It was probably one of the first notarized type white barbecue seasonings or white seasonings. A lot of people would have your salt, pepper, garlics, or your SPGs or whichever, but we were one of the first to ever put it in a bottle, really, and try to do something with it. And that, if it wasn't for the white lightning, the original, then I don't think our any of our other lines would have done anything to speak of, and even our barbecue rub itself. So I think the white lightning is, once it came out and we had an opportunity to sell it, um, that that was what opened our eyes up to, hey, there's an opportunity here for us and our seasonings to help pay for our competitions and things of that nature.
And that was the very seasoning I was referring to when I said the one that kind of changed the whole game. I mean, to me, not only the first, white AP type rub, but, to me, that stuff is just turbocharged with a little something, something that didn't really exist in a bottle before. If you wanted that to happen, you had to add it yourself. And all of a sudden, there's white lightning. And I mean, you can put that for those of you who aren't barbecue folks, you need to get a bottle of this and you can put it on anything to just
Everything.
blow up the flavor. And everybody who tastes it will just be like, oh my God, what is this? I don't care if you're talking
Absolutely.
popcorn, eggs, barbecue, whatever. Get you some white lightning and just play around with it, and you will find 1,000 different ways to use it. Since that one came out and really kind of broke things open, how have you guys gone about developing and testing the things that have come since? Your double garlic butter and all the rest.
Well, Eric, we were talking, and he's like, everybody loves garlic, everybody loves butter. So we started playing with putting that together. And at that time, it was pretty much Eric and I. We had a couple of people that would help us or give us feedback, which the whole world has, or our whole cooking world has changed from, say, 2010, 11, 12 to what we are a part of now. Our White Lightning team that we have all over the world, is very notable people, and they're very notable friends that are very successful, and they come with ideas and they come with flavors that say, hey, I don't like this, I like this, or it's got too much of this. And so it kind of takes the hard process and out of two people's hands, and then puts it in a conglomeration with the Tim and Sandy Browns, the Matt Oceans, the Craig Carters, those types of people that are really successful at what they did, and they believed in our product even before we knew them. And those people help us develop our flavors. We'll have an idea, or they'll have the idea, and then we'll start playing with it and figuring out how it works, how it cooks, what it cooks on, what it goes with. It's a lot to putting a seasoning together. It's expensive to put a seasoning together. It takes we'll have a seasoning for probably a year before it ever makes the opportunity to make a big show or an opportunity to hit retail.
I'm really glad you brought up the White Lightning team because, I'm sure I don't know all of them, but I know I run into a bunch of them all the time and they're always singing your praises. And, some of those folks have taught us a lot about what we know. But, in Ann's and I's real life, when we're not doing barbecue, we're often out trying to gather customer feedback and figure out what it means. And I know that can get complicated. You want to take the next question, Ann, and tee that one up?
Yeah, I just love this conversation about kind of how you guys evaluate the flavors and the whole White Lightning team, and especially because of the flavor guide that Brian and I have developed. And I'll tell you that, despite all the testing that Brian and I do, we don't always agree. We're individual people. Taste is subjective. And so there's a lot of banter that we have about the flavors. And I'm just curious how you work with all of the testers on your White Lightning team and how you handle all that feedback. I mean, they can't always agree. How do you deal with that?
Well, it for one, there's a ton of respect back and forth. Al and I have thick skin. If there's something that's, that stands out that we all don't think is right, we want to know. It's not hurting our feelings any, and flavor, we need them as our R&D team. Flavor gets repetitious. And what I mean by that is, when you cook something at home and then you get to realize you're cooking that same dish once a week or once every other week, and it just gets repetitious. Well, your palate gets repetitious and you're kind of wanting the same thing. There's a lot of people that eat the same thing for lunch every day. It's just repetitious. Well, if you surround yourself, or you develop an R&D team that are spread out around the world. We have people in Australia, we've got people out in Midwest. Tim and Sandy aren't Northerners anymore. They're kind of local now, but we have people spread out that cook differently than we do. Their palates are different than us. They grew up eating different food. Their parents cooked them different stuff. And we want that variety. We want that range of people's, palates and their flavor and what they like. And if we can get the dozen people that we sponsor to give us their opinions, and we develop these seasonings together. Alan and I come up with the ideas. We develop a seasoning, and then we put it out when we think it's close. We don't even give it out to them until we think it's real close. And then we fine tune it. When it gets spread out to the team, that's when it's time to test. And we test at competitions. And when you hear Tim and Sandy and Huntley and Jeff Jacobson and everybody that it's on Team White Lightning that everybody knows, they're using all these products that are not on the market yet, along with the ones that already are, that they're using these products because we want real life testing. Yes, our products have MSG in it. We don't hide it. We put that in there because we're not trying to make people healthy. We're trying to win competitions. We're trying to win championships. And that's what we do. We develop seasons to make your food taste better. And it's going to make it taste better all across the country, not just in one region.
Hell yeah. White Lightning, baby.
White Lightning, baby.
White Lightning, baby. All right. Well, before we move on, I'm just going to say I don't think there's anything unhealthy about MSG that you don't get from other types of sodium.
No, but ours isn't sugar free. It's none of that. We're making seasonings that taste good. That's going to make your food taste good.
That's right. All right. Well, let's talk about your latest big thing, the collab Texas Tornado. So tell us what that is, what it's for, how it came to be.
Obviously, Texas Tornado is a blend of our B&O double garlic butter, our number one seller worldwide. And then Mark Lambert, one of his best sellers is Texas beef. Well, we've been running it for years as a finishing dust on our steak. We've been using that blend for brisket and tri-tip and everything beef related. And then we started using it on chicken and all this other stuff that we were just making it ourselves. We were just blending it. And now that social media is such a big game in advertising and your marketing, we want his followers and he wants ours. We both got a lot of followers on our social media platforms. And we were like, let's do something that no one else has done. And everybody says, it's not cool going in business with your friends. Well, it is if you're developing a seasoning that, is going to be a hit. And we took a year or so to figure out the ratio of how much double garlic butter and how much Texas tornado, how much Texas beef, what the grinds need to be so it's all cohesive. And, same thing
Yeah, I
like
was
Alan
gonna
said,
say,
it's gonna
I was
take some
gonna,
time for everybody to R&D it.
I
But
was
then when
gonna
we
ask,
nailed it, it was good.
I was gonna ask you about the grinds because I've used both those products by themselves, a lot before this came out, and I seem to remember the Texas beef was a little chunkier.
hmm
Yeah, if it's too much, larger or heavier than what's in the double garlic butter, it's all going to settle.
Yep.
Especially with transportation. Once it's put in bottles, it's going to bounce up and down the road. It's in your cooking trailer. All that big stuff's going to settle. So, regardless, it's all the same ingredients. We had to change the size of it a little bit so it works right.
So
That's
there
what
you
sets
go.
our stuff up, or sets our stuff apart from most
So,
people, and that's why it takes so long. Is the size of the grinds of your product is more important than what's in it.
So who knew there's actually some physics involved in developing a world-class barbecue rub, right?
100%. It's all science.
Not just chemistry, not just flavor, not just instinct. There's some actual physics involved. So, audience, be sure and weigh in on what your favorite B&O products are, and more than anything else, I want to know what you put them on. Especially outside of barbecue, competition barbecue. How are you using these things? Because we're always looking for new ways to share stuff. Before we wrap this up, you guys got any other killer combos or way to stack your products together, or even with other brands that you think are just mind blowing?
Well, all of our products that we have now are able to be used with other products to enhance theirs. White Lightning alone, take your regular recipe that you run now, add a little White Lightning first as your base layer, and your scores will go up. We've done the research. Everyone else has too. When it comes to other products, we've got 7 out now. We've got several up our sleeves, and we're just patient. We just brought out the Texas Tornado not long ago, so it'll be a little while before we bring out another one. But rest assured, it's sitting there ready to go.
So what's an unexpected way I can use White Lightning besides as a base layer or finisher in my barbecue? What else can I do with that?
Use it as a cure.
Tell
Put it
me
on
about
heavy
that.
like a
What do you
salt
mean?
cure. When I won the world championship in SCA in 2017, I brined my steak with White Lightning, like a heavy salt cure. I would cover it till you couldn't even see the meat. I'd let it sit on there for 45 minutes to an hour, depending on ambient temperature. Then I'd wash it off and it would break down. This is before we had Wicked Pig or there were any of these marinades out on the market that have the pineapple extract that really breaks down tissue. Well, we just always did it old school and use salt and sugar, which is some of the ingredients in our product. So if you're going to use salt and sugar, you might as well put some garlic and some onion and some pepper and other stuff in it. We brine our whole hogs. We cure our whole hogs before we season them before they go on the pit. We use White Lightning. We pour White Lightning all over it. We sweat it for 2 hours. We rinse it off and we re-season. So that's one a lot of people don't know. There's a lot of the people that are cooking comp barbecue that have been doing that for years. So
well, mine's probably not controversial at all, but I use that stuff in place of popcorn salt, and it's pretty good.
100%.
Everybody should definitely try that, and it'd be the best popcorn you ever had.
It's good on watermelon, believe it or not.
I had not thought of that, but
It's really good on watermelon.
Do that.
Cantaloupe and
Cantaloupe.
We have done that one. Yes, we have.
Yep.
Well, we are running short on time, so we're going to move into the landing mode here. Eric, Allen, where can everyone find you out in the world? Where do they look for you on the socials or the web, and how do they get to find out more?
If you type in Boars Night Out into any platform, it's going to pull up. You can go to YouTube, Facebook, any of the social media places. You go to @Boars Night Out, and it's going to pull us up. You can hit us up on our website at boarsnightout.com. If you got any questions for us, you can go to info@boarsnightout.com. That'll go directly to Ashley, and he will sift through everything, and he will answer whatever questions, and they will be passed on to us to answer the ones that he can't. And we're pretty easy to reach. We're pretty easy to find.
And if you've got a signature bottle of one of our products, it's probably got my phone number on it.
That's it.
Right on. Well, Eric and Alan, thank you so much for hanging out with us
Thank you.
tonight.
Hey, thank y'all for having us.
Yeah, thank y'all for having us.
This is great.
Yeah, everything going on at Boars Night Out. You guys have been an inspiration to me since the first time I saw you guys out there with, I guess it was Hooters girls surrounding you guys. Whatever it was, I was impressed. And a year later, I got my wife to start going along with me so I wouldn't be tempted.
And
But
also say that I'm so thrilled that Jeff connected us with all of your flavors so many years ago.
Well,
Yeah,
we thank y'all for the support and what y'all do. It's a very intriguing job that y'all have, and get
Yeah.
the flavors that you get to try, and then you get to figure out what it is or where it came from. So I think that's really cool. That's a great thing y'all put together, Jeff. Hats off to y'all for doing that, and we just appreciate all the support that and the feedback that y'all give us, and the the support you have in our products.
well,
Yep,
everyone,
thank y'all a ton.
be sure to check out the full Boars Night Out lineup at barbecueproshop.com. For each one of those rubs, we've got a flavor guide that helps you break it down between the dimensions of salt and sweet and savory and heat, and help you get some guidance on how to use these things. To all our listeners, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next month on the next Flavor Talk. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for
Thank
having
y'all.
us. Y'all
Have
have
a
a
good
good
night.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.